Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome to my hobby blog. Today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite trilogies of all time. Not really a sort of connected trilogy. Each movie does not really have anything to do with the other, except for one theme, which is vengeance. And that is why today I want to talk about Park Chan-wook's Vengeance trilogy. I don't really know what else to call it. That's typically what it's called. All three of these films. Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is the first one. And then we have Oldboy, which is probably the most famous one for obvious reasons. It's probably the most extreme, has the most fucked up twists that I know. And then the final film that Park Chan-wook had done was Lady Vengeance, which I just finished watching. Today I actually took all day, basically since around lunchtime, because we had the time change, so I've been on a little bit of a kind of cleansing or healing time, because I hate the time change, so I decided to watch all three of these films today, and to also go through the special features, which there are a lot, and I typically do not do this for Arrow limited releases, but they have these little slip cards that you can input, but because of the way that this opens, I'm not comfortable with it sitting on my shelf without the O insert, I guess is what it's called, but the way that it opens is that you have it here, and it opens on one side, and then you have all of the insanity that is this box, which is all three films, a 100-page hardback book all about the production, looking at all of the critical sort of analysis going through the whole series, but especially with the Oldboy #2. Although technically, on this release, they are treating Oldboy as the main attraction of this box set, which I don't blame them for, but I do wish that there was a bit more focus on all three of them, because we have a 100-page hardback analysis, basically, a book of essays, and the best one, in my opinion, and you'll see here, the table of contents. My favorite essay on here that I recommend everybody to read is called Even Though I'm No Better Than a Beast, Park Chan-wook's Vengeance Trilogy and the Self-Destructive Nature of Han, which is a concept that was new to me going into these movies. Han is a South Korean word for something that we don't have an equivalent of in English. And Anthony Bourdain gave sort of a loose definition, because it is such a heavily historical word and term in South Korean identity. And Anthony Bourdain gave a definition that this author of the essay referenced. And it seems to me that what Han is emblematic of is sort of national identity that is surrounded by sort of very tough, heavy pressure from peers, from overlookers or bosses, management, parents, religious sort of pressure, and how in South Korean society it's very I'm doing my best to kind of talk about this as someone who is not South Korean, obviously, as an American, but it seems as if there's just so many pressures in Korean society that it sometimes really builds up in people, and they go off and do something frowned upon. And this is as a result of many decades of various occupations from different countries, such as the U.S., the Japanese government. I believe China at one point was in control of Korea. So there's definitely a lot of national identity things going on in these movies. That Park Chan Wook, which, by the way, the reason why I'm not saying Park Chan Wook with a W is that Tony Raines had a really great video appreciation sort of essay on this release where he talked about all three films and sort of what they're about and expanding a bit more on the essay that is in this book, which Tony Raines didn't write the essay, but I'm sure he was pretty cognizant of it, or at least of these themes, because he talks about Han, because he can speak, I believe, Chinese, Korean, and Japanese, because he's a huge Asian films expert. And so he was talking about this word Han, which is the South Korean word, as I've been explaining, but he talks about how these three films really explore that. Because before 1992, they were under a dictatorship. South Korea was. And so after that, censorship was basically thrown out the window and anyone could make any movie that they wanted. And in 2001, I believe, Park Chan-wook, oh, by the way, to explain why I'm saying that, Tony Raines says that the W is sort of a way to connect all of the two names in the South Korean name Chanuk, which is one word in Korean, I believe, and then his family name is Park, P-A-R-K, and so his name is Chanuk, and then his last name is Park. But we in English, we don't say the last name or the last name first or the family name first. We go Christian and then family name. For South Korea, they go last name or family surname first, and then the individual's name. So his family is from Park, and his first name is Chanuk, so it's Park Chan-wook, or Park Chan-wook is the real sort of pronunciation of that Tony Raines provides, and which I'm very grateful of because I've been saying it wrong all these years. But his video essay all about this is so well done and something that I had no idea of, because I've seen all three of these movies over and over again since before I started collecting movies. I've known of them since the late 2000s, early 2010s, when I was probably around 13 to 16 or so. I remember watching Oldboy, I think, on Netflix DVD. I rented it and then loved it, of course, but I was really going back and forth because Oldboy is such a really hard watch, and I want to kind of go through each movie and just kind of give my impressions on it, what I love most about it, my history with this trilogy, because I have actually never loved these movies. But all three of these films I've always really appreciated as an art form, but you would never hear me say I love Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, or I love Oldboy, or I love Lady Vengeance. I've always enjoyed these films, but they are such hard watches, and I'm not going to do a ranking of the three movies. I think that's very unfair because these three films are very similar, but also very different. Sort of the theme that ties all three of them together is, of course, vengeance, and how vengeance is not particularly a solution. And this series of three films, which I was going back and forth on whether to have a mindset of this while going into these three films, but to think of it as an anthology film, but more like an anthology where each part of the anthology is basically a full-length movie. And going into it with that mindset definitely helps. And all three of these movies are awesome on their own, right? But the issue is that, well, not really the issue, but the thing that really made today kind of great is that all three of these individual films are great. But my issue is that these are not movies to watch one after the other. These, you should watch them one night, watch the special features, or watch the special features first and then the movie, like I did, and then wait a day, and then watch through the others, and then wait a day, and then watch the 3.5 hour documentary that has been done for this release for the Oldboy making of, which I really want to watch one day, but I'm still sort of wrestling with my feelings about the series because on Letterboxd I rated them 5 stars, and for Oldboy, really, I have a hard time recommending it to people. I think this should be a self-discovered movie, Oldboy. Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is my favorite, I think, of the 3 films because, and I guess I'll start into my reactions to these individual films and going sort of movie by movie. But Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is a really accessible movie to watch. It's very dark. There's some really fucked up shit going on. But I really love this movie the most. This is the one that I think would be a great double feature if you have the time, with Memories of Murder, which is a Bong Joon-ho film. And this one also stars Song Kang-ho, who is one of the best South Korean actors today, and has been for the last 20 years or so, since the late 90s, early 2000s. But this one is all about Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, is all about somebody, a mute deaf guy. He is living with his sister. His sister is sick, needs a new liver. She's very sick and can't really do much on her own. And they are poor, which is a pretty repeated theme of these movies. Poor people having to make do with what life has given them, or what has been done to them, and they have to go to extreme measures in order to feel any sort of hope. And this movie especially, the deaf guy, he has a girlfriend who is an anarchist who kind of works with him to formulate a plan to kidnap the daughter of his company's, or because he's okay. I should have prepared more, but the movie is all about him working at this factory that kind of melts down metals or something. They don't really go into it. I assume it's some sort of salvage factory where they can melt down kind of fucked up metal and then reuse it, kind of recycling. But he's fired from that job, and so what happens is that he gets desperate because he was just going by in life with his wage, and it was taken away from him after he's being fired. And so what ends up happening is that he gets desperate, and that's where a lot of these South Korean films really excel, because all these characters, they have a lot of cause for going the way that they do. But the thing about the South Korean thriller genre is that nothing goes well. It always falls apart, and it's always because of one simple mistake or one sort of complication that was not seen beforehand. And so what's happening in this movie is that his sister is slowly dying, and he and his girlfriend kidnap the daughter of the manager of the factory, who is played by Song Kang-ho, and he's great in it. So is the rest of the cast and crew. They're really good. The girlfriend that he has in this movie, our main character, she is in Bong Joon-ho's The Host, and also in Bong Joon-ho's Barking Dogs Don't Bite, which are two great movies, and she's the lead in both of them, and she's really great in it. And I didn't even realize it was her when I was watching these movies, but she's in almost all three of them. And outside of this movie, if she's in the others, it's a cameo. She's not a major character, but they get the money eventually. And what ends up happening is that and this is, we're not even halfway through the movie yet. There's a very distinct first half and then second half, because at the in the middle of the movie, they get the money back and they're like, okay, let's return the daughter, everything will be fine. He and the girlfriend say, but then his sister finds out that they kidnapped the manager's daughter, and she is so upset by this that she kills herself. So it's very much a Shakespearean type of tragedy that goes on throughout all three of these movies, but especially this one. Oldboy goes way deeper in the tragedy realm. Maybe I'll go into that, but in this movie, the sister kills herself, and that sets off a chain of events. And eventually, because we start the movie right off with the sister and the brother talking with each other, saying, hey, we loved being by this riverside. Please bury me by the river whenever I die. The sister tells the mute brother. And so he goes, okay. And they kind of forget about it, but then she kills herself, and he's like, okay, well, I guess I need to bury you by the river. And so he and the little girl that they've kidnapped, he's going to go drop her off after burying his sister. Well, in pure Park Chan-wook's fashion, and also in the general genre of what happens, the daughter drowns. And the rest of the second half of the movie, because this is right at the hour mark, all three of these films are 2 hours each, by the way, so that's why I'm especially tired and kind of burnt out right now. But from that point forward, we don't really see those characters anymore. We then follow the father, played by Song Kang-ho, and it's kind of amazing, his acting range, because Park Chan-wook's first movie is JSA, which I think I've talked about on this channel, but it's also called Joint Security Area. It's all about South Korean soldiers slowly becoming, I guess, sympathetic and just general friends with North Korean troops that are across the DMZ, the demilitarized zone between the two countries. And Song Kang-ho is in that movie too, and it's really fucking good. That's one of his first movies, I believe, of this period of his career, where he's doing a lot more kind of heavy-hitter, emotional movies. But everything with him is just so well done. This entire movie is very well done. I think this is my favorite one of the trilogy, and it's one that I recommend everyone to go watch as soon as possible. I know the set has been out of print now for like 2 or 3 years now. I totally lucked out in getting this. Saw it on Instagram for a pretty low price, and it was from a reputable Instagram page that is actually pretty big on the horror movie side of Instagram. But Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is one that is really hard to watch. I love it a lot. I think it's my favorite one. But again, it's really hard to watch. They have many kind of fucked up shots of violence. You see the girl drown. They have a lot of great behind the scenes footage of them shooting that scene of him burying his sister while in the background, because he's mute, he can't hear her screaming for help, and it's very muted because we have no sound going on anytime it's from his perspective. And while the scene is happening, she is drowning and screaming and whatever, and calling his name because he and his girlfriend ended up going along great with the kidnapped victim, and she didn't even realize she was kidnapped. So there's a little bit of that, I guess, that tragedy on top of the tragedy that's already happening with the fact that she thought she was safe with these people, and the girlfriend goes off to do something else to, I think, pick up the money from the father. And it's a really great kind of scene, and they have some great behind the scenes interviews and everything on this release from the time that they were filming. So I guess they were able to access all of Park Chan-wook's I guess archives of interviews and stuff that the company had filmed while making this movie. But I highly recommend watching. I think it's a 40-minute behind the scenes where they interview all of the cast. They interview the director. They interview the hairstylist. Like, they interview everybody, and they all have really great things to say about this movie. But I don't really know what else to talk about with Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, because I don't really want to go into spoilers. I mean, there's a lot more spoilers to be had in these movies, but I want to more talk about my experience this go around. And this time, I didn't even look at my phone one bit during the entirety of the first movie. I think every time that I've seen this movie, I've always been like, I have always enjoyed this more than Oldboy, is what I always think to myself. And while watching the movie, I think it is better than Oldboy. I love Oldboy, and I think I see the light now, because before I go into the specifics, but I've never enjoyed Oldboy. I've always felt that it's very nihilistic. It's very tragic. One thing I love about the South Korean genre, or the thriller genre from South Korea, is that it is always so tragic and depressing and sad. And these movies especially with Oldboy, there is no catharsis at the end. The ending to Oldboy, which I won't say, but the last 30 minutes of this movie is probably the most gut-wrenching, fucked up, tragic, angering, every adjective that you can think of, because if you know, you know. I don't want to go into it for those who haven't seen it, but this movie just keeps going into a hole, I guess a black hole, where it sucks out the light of everything, because oh my god. I haven't seen Oldboy for many years. I first saw it when I was, 15 or whatever, on Netflix or Netflix DVD, I'm not sure. But I remember I hated it back then. Waited a few years. I was in not film school, but I was in school and was doing my major and was on the side studying film. Not getting a degree in it, but was still taking a lot of classes in the film school. That was I was able to sign up for some of the classes because of my my residence college, which was also an honors college. But I remember I rewatched all three of these films back then in school, and I enjoyed Oldboy more. I didn't have as much of a negative feeling. I can see the craft. Obviously, these movies are very well made, but Oldboy especially is insanely well made. It's probably his best movie, Park Chan-wook's best movie, and I've only seen JSA in these three films, I think. Maybe one other one. I haven't seen Handmaiden yet, which I'll get into, actually, when talking about Lady Vengeance, because there's some pretty problematic stuff going on with Lady Vengeance. But with Oldboy, that film craft is sort of balanced out by the fucked up plots that are going on and sort of the depravity of some of our characters. None of them are really that good. Right off the bat, we get our main character who is drunk off his ass, beating up cops, getting jailed, and he is let loose a few nights after, and one of his friends from work shows up and is like, hey, I'm going to call your wife and your daughter because it's your daughter's birthday. You need to call and say happy birthday or whatever, and then we'll go home. And it's while he's calling that our drunken protagonist is kidnapped and thrown into basically a hotel room in an undisclosed location on the 20th something floor. And he is kept there for 15 years without any contact, without really anything. And he gets really desperate, and he is about to break out 15 years later. And he's just let loose for no reason at all. And the rest of the movie is him meeting various characters and trying to figure out why he was kidnapped. And there was some really, 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 really fucked up shit throughout this movie. It's a really hard movie to watch. But again, I really like this movie this time. I finally see why people love it. And I've always seen it, but for me, I've always focused on the ending and, of course, the hallway scene. Everybody loves the hallway scene. That's all anybody talks about. So that's sort of why I was a bit butting heads with this movie for so many years. Because anytime I would mention, oh, I've seen Oldboy quite a number of times, people would be like, have you seen that hallway scene? I'm like, yes, it's great, whatever. And this time I watched it, I finally was able to view this entire movie because I rewatched Mr. Vengeance. Well, first I watched the special features for Mr. Vengeance, then I watched the movie. And then I went through the interviews on the Oldboy release. Well, not release, but for this movie. I went through a couple of the interviews on it. And on this release, they have a 3.5-hour documentary about the making of this movie. I watched the 20-minute one because they have 2 discs just for Oldboy. And there's a disc where it's just the movie and a few of the special features. There's an audio commentary track, which I didn't put on because it's in Korean. So I wanted to be able to watch the movie and then listen to the audio commentary. But the 2 subtitles would be overlapping each other. And if not, I'm not familiar enough with the story to be able to 100% understand what the director is talking about. Because it is a commentary with the director. So I'm sure it's amazing. But I think next time I watch this movie, I will have the commentary on because I don't think I'm going to forget any more about what happens in this movie. This time, it just really brought me down. This movie is really hard to watch, and this is something that I wasn't expecting. I was expecting this movie to be more sort of... I don't want to say that I lost or that I become more... there's a specific word I'm looking for. I haven't lost any... it's not like taste, but I'm still affected a lot by this movie, and I thought I wouldn't be, and I can't figure out the word, but it's basically that I thought this movie would be easier to digest as I was older, and as I've seen more movies and know the director, know some of these actors and actresses, but this movie is still very hard to watch, and I don't want to belabor that point too much more because I've been talking now for about 30 minutes, and I feel like I haven't really said anything. But this movie, I love it now. I understand. It's not a movie I will watch often, though, and I'm getting to the point in my kind of film cinema journey that I don't really want to rewatch movies over and over and over again. I want to be able to have a certain amount of time before I revisit to kind of rediscover the movie and to really engage with it. Because after Spooktober, I really don't want to rush through movies like that again. I watched 91 movies, which feels great. I'm very happy because most of them I really enjoyed, but I wasn't able to really do what I enjoy most when it comes to watching movies, which is watching the special features and learning about the behind the scenes, and also getting the commentaries of what's and the themes and all of that. I wasn't able to do that really at all last month during October. Well, not last month, but last week in October. And this time, going through this box set all day since I think about 9 a.m. I think I watched. I did take breaks between each movie, so I could have some time to really kind of digest it. But I think one movie a night would be a lot better. I should have done that. But oh well. Maybe I'll do a live stream one day where I talk about these three films and we can really go deep into kind of our thoughts and feelings and be able to talk about spoiler stuff. But for now, I got through this trilogy. I just want to kind of talk about it without really any structure. But sympathy for Lady Vengeance. I don't really have anything else to say about Oldboy. That's why I took a short pause. But Lady Vengeance. This is kind of the black sheep of the trilogy. It's, I wouldn't say the most wholesome. It definitely has its moments of sort of justice, because in the two movies before there is no justice. It's very nihilistic, especially in Oldboy. I really feel as if that movie really kind of gets into the grime and the sleaze and everything like that. Lady Vengeance is like, okay, we're going this direction now, and Lady Vengeance is all about this woman who supposedly killed a 5-year-old boy who her teacher is one of the teachers at the school that she went to and that she was about to graduate from in high school. And he's also a teacher in the preschool or whatever program. And he ends up becoming a serial killer. Well, not becoming, but he is a serial killer. And he sort of gaslit her into making her think that she needs to take responsibility for the death of the boy in order to save him, because he just had a baby and his entire life is ready to go. She's about to graduate college. She can go to jail and prison and everything like that. And while she's in prison, she's like, fuck that. I'm going to get my revenge on this guy because he's awful and he's been killing kids left and right. And so she's in there for, I think, 13 years in prison. And she has a lot of issues in there. She, right off the bat, meets this lesbian prisoner who is played so awfully. And I don't mean that as like she's an awful person who is tormenting this character. It is a really awful representation of queer people. This is something that Tony Raines actually talked about in his his essay on the release, is that this movie is really awful when it comes to representation. And Park Chan-wook actually went on to apologize really heavily about it, because it is really problematic what this character is doing and how he sort of turns her into a caricature of what people think lesbians are. And it's really nasty and disgusting. And this is sort of why this movie kind of dropped a little for me. I've always enjoyed this movie, but this character is major enough to where she's in the movie a lot, and it's really not done well. And I'm very kind of happy that Park Chan-wook went back and decided, or not went back, but he apologized for it, and then made a new movie called The Handmaid's Tale, I believe. And that's all about positive representation of lesbians, is what he was going for. And it's a later movie by him. I think it's 2016, 2017. And that movie especially was much better received by everybody, and especially of queer people. And I haven't seen it yet, so I still need to kind of watch it before I form my own opinions about it. But it's a movie I hear about a lot. People say it's one of his best movies he's ever made. And I'm definitely interested because the representation in this movie is awful. I know quite well that there's definitely, because there's a lot of homophobic people out there, of course, as we all know, but especially in the early 2000s, it was casual. Most people were homophobic. I think today it's a lot better, but in this day, and especially in South Korea, where there's really no out of the closet gay people in South Korean entertainment, this is still an issue that they need to sort of sort out and figure out, because it can be damaging to people to watch that and to be misrepresented in a way that is straight up offensive. And I'm really happy that Park Chan-wook did go back and kind of fix that issue. And it's something that he talks about in the interviews, being like, oh my gosh, like, I was embarrassed, basically, that I did this in my past. And Tony Raines goes far deeper into it, and about how Park Chan-wook was sort of fixing his issues and mistakes of the past. But Lady Vengeance is all about her after the prison, slowly gaining the evidence and slowly trapping this teacher so that she can get all of the parents. And I guess this is spoilers, but she kind of rallies the teacher, not the teachers, but she rallies the parents of the dead children, and brings them all into a room and is like, hey, it was him, it was not me, and here's how. And she finds all of his evidence that he's been holding on to, little trinkets here and there. She brings that. She finds all of the videos that he made when he was kind of showing off that he was about to kill the child. He would kind of selfie mode with the camera, be talking with him, being like, hey, like, I'm gonna get away with this. Like, no one can get me. And this is sort of like my thing I'll have taped onto my desk, literally, where that's the only evidence and no one's ever gonna find it. And it's another reason to watch these movies separately and not binge them, is that this movie works really well on its own. And there's a lot of dialogue, actually, from Mr. Vengeance that is used in this, which I did not at all kind of realize before this watch, because there's a monologue in Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance where our two kidnappers are kind of weighing the differences between a good kidnapping and a bad kidnapping. And basically it comes down to whether the child is returned safely. And so they talk about, like, oh, you never hear about good kidnappings because they're returned and they get the money. and the parents don't say anything about it, and the family just become closer together, is what the characters are saying. But of course, it's a bad kidnapping because the girl is drowned. And this Lady Vengeance movie also uses the exact same monologue at one point, and it ticked off right, or it lit a light bulb in my head the moment they saw it saying. I was like, oh, okay, because I've never viewed Lady Vengeance as connected to these other two movies, but now that it's a little more connected. I think Lady Vengeance is a really great standalone movie, along with the other two movies. These movies should not really be seen as a trilogy, unless you're thinking of it as an anthology film of the theme being vengeance and revenge and justice and all of that. So, I'm not really sure what else to talk about. But I really hope this didn't come off as rambling and that I'm wasted my time, because I do really enjoy these movies. I wanted something to upload because I have one viewer who has been really gracious and kind and has been asking me to do more Korean cinema on my channel. And this is a trilogy that I've been really wanting to talk about for basically since before this series, or before this YouTube channel was made, because this is one of the best trilogies out there, or movies in general, in the South Korean thriller genre. And I'm so happy for that viewer who has been asking me, and I wouldn't say pushing me. I wouldn't say that in a negative light at all. I'm happy that this person has been kind of reminding me to branch out a little bit more, because I do kind of stick in my safe area in cinema of, Japanese films, horror films, cult films. But I never really talk about Korean movies really ever. And these three in general are very well regarded, regarded as the best. And I think this was a really great sort of experiment today, watching all three of them back to back to back. So thank you to that viewer for inspiring me to finally talk about these, because I know quite a few number of people have asked me my feelings on this series, and I'm happy to say that I do love them. They're not movies I will watch often. Maybe Oldboy, just to show off to people and be like, see, it's a good movie. You guys should watch cult films. Because I think this trilogy especially is what... I'm trying to fit this on. I apologize. I'll just put it down, sorry. This trilogy especially is just so well known. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please let me know if you enjoyed this video, and if not, that's fine too. As long as we have a good time talking about it. Thank you all so much for watching, and please have a great rest of the weekend.